of the pre-round freeze. We're checking out what's going to be happening in off-meta combat. And we arrive in this, I'm going to be polite, amalgamation. No, I'm going to call it mess. It's mountain clearing, meme clearing, as it got known at Red Bull Wallow, where I believe it was selected by one player, if I'm not mistaken, for the whole tournament. I don't think it even got played once. Shout out to, I believe it's M-Lord who maybe picked it. We're back. And players are practicing it. So there's a clear intent to go into this, and maybe it's somewhat a possible map to play without it feeling absolutely absurd, because we have to remember this is going to be round 3, the off-meta combat, which means the top 4 civs are banned. And as decided by the top 28 players on the rankings, the top 4 civs on this map are Mongols, HRE, English, and I believe it's Chinese. You can kind of imagine what a lot of those civs have in common when you see how close you are on the map. In fact, these guys are so close to each other, it's almost like they can reach out and just hold hands. Mountain clearing, even more absurd in the previous iteration, by the way. It used to be that there was a full, thick wood line that pushed you even closer together. You just have a little bit of broom room here. But there are just so many issues. And, you know, I was questioning before we hopped in this game why the HRE got banned over the Rus on this map. I think this answers itself, right? M-Lord made the suggestion like Ark and Burgrave being pretty good, but I think there's another reason. You don't even have to be just a Burgrave boy. What the fudge are these spawns? Dude, it's like Oprah came in and gave everyone a relic. Like, what's... This is insane. I did not realize that... Because I don't think the old mountain clearing had relics underneath your TC like this. But you have 2 TCs, 2 relics rather, more or less guaranteed. Yeah, so no HRE in this map, but plenty of Rus. Ottoman's a decent choice on the other side coming out from Lenok, but I can't help but just feel like this is probably going to become a Rus-dominant map when we see it, due to the Kremlin play and due to the formidability of the wooden fortresses as the game goes on. There's wooden fortresses that, while being absurdly more chunky than other opponents' choices, don't take that much longer to build. But we will be focusing on that fuelage timing. Now, one downside for the Rus, of course, is going to be a lack of goodies in terms of free gold to be found, right? There's only 2 small stacks a day and 2 big stacks on this map, as well as 1 Pumba in the center. But it's not even about the gold. Like, you can at least get enough gold, pretty much guaranteed each time, to get your tech up, and that's all you need. Once you get the Kremlin on a map like this, especially with how the wood lines can sometimes just be out of reach slightly, it's very easy to raid on the backside. Even more so when you consider, like, probably one of the better civs, or the better civs rather, for dealing with these Kremlin rush plays would have been the English and the Chinese, both of which are not going to make an appearance on this map. It's interesting to actually see Kiwin just avidly practicing these as well, because I think Kiwin, he looks like he wants to hop back in, right? But we haven't seen him so far. In fact, if I recall correctly, he didn't make it into Gold League, right? I'm confident in saying that. There's still a few players we never got a chance to watch have made it. I can't remember who it was I was talking to the other day, and they're like, no, I'm playing. It's like, huh? But Kiwin, if you aren't familiar, he is qualified. He came through the open qualifier. I think it may have been the second one. But he was very active in the first several months of the game's release, but kind of just disappeared for, I want to say, like half a year. Glad to see he's back on the grind, though. Very talented player. People might know him from StarCraft by the name Top. He's a very talented player. I think back then he was kind of known as a Mongol spammer, but I feel like everyone and their mum were known as Mongol players, right? If your mum picked up the game at launch, she probably would have played the Mongols. But Kremlin is on the way. Torch through won't be enough to finish off the building. And this is where the game should get a little bit silly. However, this is what I like about the Civ choice by Lenok. I think any Civ that masses archers can deal with the militia reasonably well. The reason is that militia, you know, although they are a timing unit, right, they can expire after a while, and you think, oh man, they can gap close archers because they move 1.5 movement speed compared to 1.25, and then they'll do reasonably well, and they'll do permanent damage. The reality is that you have to get to the archers, right? I think militia are really absurd in matchups where your opponent builds melee units. If your opponent is mass archers, I think militia become much more pointless. They feel almost trivial, to be honest. Because if you try to run 2 full militia towards your opponent, he's got a few archers, by the time you even reach touching distance, you're probably almost dead already. And sure, you've still done some permanent damage compared to your units naturally just going to be expiring anyway, but that doesn't matter from my perspective. If you can't kill an archer, right? If you can't kill 1 archer, or even get half of the HP of 1 archer with 2 militia, you haven't made a good exchange. In fact, the other frustrating thing if you build militia against like mass archers is your goal is actually to idle eco with these units. That's the biggest goal. But it's very difficult to get in and do that at all if by the time you arrive on the villages, I've almost killed you with 2 or 3 archers. Speaking of archers, we are going to see that added in by the Rus. It's just a natural step for them. But we already saw this matchup a little bit earlier between Numidan and Beastie, right? The Rus Ottomans on Basin. Spoiler alert, Ottos look like they have the possible solutions here. And I believe that is going to remain the case here, right? The attack speed buffer that you have to consider. The only way that I could feel good about the Kremlin play is if Lenok gets forced to go into Sipahi, but I think this is going to be a more old-school approach to the Ottomans, right? 3 archery ranges very early on. Maybe you just see passive production of Sipahis added in, an occasional spearman, maybe 1 rack's worth just to prevent knights from being a possibility. Should be kind of like the standard course, right? Unless Kiwin can kind of force him into something weird. But considering Kiwin is just opening up with double archery range, I think we are just going to get your release build Ottomans. How many sheep does this map have, actually? I never really looked into that. Because that's another cool thing to think about. With limited food sources available, I think the Ottoman Vizier point, where you get the extra 8 sheep, is very highly desirable here. It's an extra 2,000 food on a map where, you know, if you can't get your deer stack safely, you're probably sitting on 1.5 to 2.5k food safe in total. Especially when you consider that because of the way the map has generated from the games I've seen so far, berries almost always end up exposed, like they are in this game, right? And if the berries are on your front side and your opponent is running an archer comp, you simply can't access them. That's one thing I did love from Kiwin here, by the way. Notice that he prioritized the deer, not just because they're a better gathering rate, because he might be pushed off of this soon. So he just prioritizes that, keeps all the sheep alive, so that once the pressure comes in, he has a backup resource. Of course, for the Ottomans, it's a bit easier, and this kind of layers in another element to why the Ottomans are going to be very good on this map. Madrasa. An infinite food source. Obviously, finite amounts they have to regenerate, but it keeps coming back, and it kind of gives you a stabilization point that other civs won't have. Lenok. Look at this build. Went for the 2 man points, even though he's up against mass archers. And Kiwin wouldn't anticipate this because he's building archers. And because Kiwin isn't pushing, he's going to be in Trouble Town soon. Lenok is rushing Castle Age. Kiwin, well, he even adding the blacksmiths as well. He's going to be slowing himself down. Also, remember, he went for a Kremlin play. He hasn't actually used a single point for the militia yet. And on top of that, by going for the Kremlin, you don't have the Golden Gate tickets to get you to a tech up. Possibly even quicker here. And it would be quicker, right? Like, you could save on gathering on the gold stack, and then you could just trade across because you're getting 20% extra wood. By the way, he doesn't actually have any gold gathering going on. It's just the hunting cabin, right? Yeah, he's going mass hunting cabin. Bold. Very bold. It's a more viable play with a new iteration of this map, but I don't think this is the game for it. I think you need to scout what was happening on the other side. Kiwin, well, there's the militia we talked about. 60 seconds to get bang for buck. Well, you're going to get banged here. He's going to rush in. He's going to force the garrison out. Backside, the tech up is underway. Kiwin just needs to dive for it. But if you dive for it, remember what we said. The archers can pick you apart. Imams patting heads in the choke points, but need to be careful. This many archers can snipe them out straight away. Push them back at least. I honestly, folks, how to not use militia, man. This is what I was talking about. There are ways in which these units can be annoying, but when you're against archers like this, man, he needed to force Lenok into a situation where he has to defend something away from the TC, but unable to do so. Does mean that Kiwi is going to get cleaned up. Militia all but gone. Only a small quantity of archers remaining on the front side. He has at least stopped the tech up for the time being, but now Kiwin has to find surplus, right? He has to build so many more units to make up for what was just lost on that dive. Meanwhile, Lenok, he'll just bide his time, right? Just get enough together, enough archers to push back this retinue on the backside. And then with the Imam heal there, you can just commit and build up the remaining of the Imperial Armory. Do love that he's got the undermesh on the way. Originally, when I saw the Imams taking practically no damage, I actually thought he'd already got the undermesh upgrade. Surprising just how tanky they were when 10+ archers are shooting these Imams, considering that that should end up being, you know, over half of their health. Even the drummer boy. So, should just be able to snipe them down one by one now and finish the tech up. Kiwin, credit to him, he actually budgeted this quite well. He's almost got what he needs to go up into Castle Age himself. But he needs to be fast about this. The other problem he's now going to have is if he doesn't have additional units behind this, if this is basically his whole army, Lenok will go and punish him on the other side. Lenok trying to render a little bit of punishment here. Villagers are going to be sniped out, so Kiwin, when life gives him lemons, he takes those lemons and squeezes them into the eyeballs of Lenok. He'll be able to snipe, was that 4 villagers for his troubles? 8 dead in total so far, and even more falling. Kiwin! What is this? The second wave on the other side. A good play here, and a heavy hit to Lenok's eco, but remember, we are dealing with an Otto player. He did just hit Castle Age. He has got passive reduction out of 3 buildings. So, Kiwi needs to be fast. Well, Lenok, he might want to consider getting his hands on... Is he going for a keep? He's going for a keep. I was going to say he might want to get a little bit of wood together, because he needs to get a mosque and just drop these relics in. There's a lot of extra gold he's just missing out on. Instead, though, he goes for the sacred site in the center. And Kiwin just threw away the entire army, so he's not going to immediately address that. And, oh, are we going... Really? So, I think Kiwin's going heavily armored units. Which is interesting, because usually, like, the player who goes Castle Age first will make that play. Because the point is, like, in small quantities, they're really good, right? When they're not counted. But if you are second up, your opponent can probably just pivot crossbows before you arrive. This is pretty dangerous out, Kiwin. I really hope this is just kind of like the backup plan of spears and not just men-at-arms knights. While that's happening, Lenok, you see what the plan is now. Sacred Site gets captured. He yoinks the relic from Kiwin's base right next to the Army of Trinity. Don't mind me coming through. And then on top of that, to really just take that lemon and squeeze it back into Kiwin's own eyeballs, he's going to drop a keep on the Sacred Site. Ladies and gentlemen, it might not have as many hills. It might not have as many cliffs. But I do believe that in a different form, round 3 of Golden League is going to once again feature King of the Hill. Although in this situation, it's King of the Hole. Very big hole. And Kiwin, oh man, there's a great hole in his plan. He actually has no army to stop this. Whew. Well, I believe that's what they call quite the pickle. Stone drop-off complete. Lenok now on his way. Should be 14 villages to build it up. And I mean, sure, you've got knights coming, but you don't care if you're Lenok. With Imam plus archers, you can just body block them and tank long enough that this is still going to go up. Oh, this is so infuriating. And the sad part is actually Kiwin has no idea about it because where's his scouts? Wait, really? Was he trying to yoink the oh no. Kiwin, I'm not sure what the goal was here. So you saw your opponent had picked up your relic quite a while ago now. And you thought you'd be able to pick up his. I mean, he had 2, so he had to do some of them, right? But yeah, instant GG. He doesn't even find out about the castle. He just sees the relics, shakes his head. His horse even makes a noise that sounds like someone shaking his head as it goes. He's done.